Wrestling. It is me, the managing editor of Wrestling Inc., Nick Hausman, back here for a brand new Friday video installment of our WINCLY podcast. Here as I'm joined here every Friday by the owner, manager, proprietor, executive editor, post-show pundit. It's my good friend Raj Giri. Raj, welcome back to the WINCLY.
Thanks as always, Nick.
A litany. The list keeps getting longer. I try to add one more thing each week.
It does seem to be expanding.
Well, the world of ringside wrestling is expanding as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here every Friday, 2 p.m. Central. You can find Raj and I here with the Friday WINCLY, but it is a free-to-download app. You guys can go check it out. There's chat rooms. You can jam with other pro wrestling fans. There's original programming here on the Ringside Wrestling app, Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You're going to see names like Josh Matthews, Petey Williams, now in the mix here as well at Ringside Wrestling. So go download it, join in the fun, and you can chat with us along with the show down below. Later on today, after Raj and I talk the top 5 stories of the Wink, we are also going to have another exclusive interview for you guys here today with none other than our own field correspondent, Andy Malnoske, talking to Dusty Rhodes. Baby Dow. Baby Dow's going to be here today. Raj Giri, Baby Dow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. My Dusty isn't so hot, but yeah, Baby Doll, a legend in the business. So
Baby Doll gonna come out here. She's gonna show her stuff off, make the show a little bit better. Raj Giri,
yeah, that's pretty good.
Baby
I'm impressed.
Doll. Thank you. I don't know if you can tell, but I've committed my life to pro wrestling, so there's only so many skills I have.
There you go.
Of the skills I do have, of the skills Raj has, punditing is one of them. We got 5 big stories to go over from the past week here in Wrestling Inc., so let's get to it. We had breaking news here just this morning. The top story as of today, Ric Flair was rushed to the hospital. According to TMZ, Flair was rushed to an Atlanta area hospital earlier. He suffered a medical emergency, and his condition was said to be very serious. Now, Flair recently turned 70. He had a medical scare back in 2017. I was literally just a couple hours ago on a media call with Conrad Thompson, whose father-in-law is Ric Flair. He married Ric's daughter, Megan. Conrad on the call said that this had been a pre-planned event. There was nothing to worry about. I'm starting to hear a couple mixed reports about that, how this doesn't seem like it may have been pre-planned, but very sad to hear either way that Ric wound up in the hospital here.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a planned surgery and, it was all meant to go that way, that's one thing. But yeah, like you said, it does seem like there's more to it. Hopefully he's okay. Conrad did say that Flair will still be at StarCast next weekend. So that would indicate that he's all right. Obviously ever since Flair's health scare in, 2017, I think everyone's always a little nervous when we hear Flair, Flair going in for surgery. So hopefully this is it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope Ric is fine. We're sitting at our best to him and his family as they're dealing with this, but on a, separate but somewhat related note here, as soon as I saw this, I thought of Conrad. Conrad is dealing with a lot right now, putting on StarCast 2. There's a lot tied up in this Roast of Ric Flair event. Just bad timing here. StarCast 2 has been, StarCast 2, the event, almost as much news as the actual Double or Nothing, I think, at this point, Yeah,
and unfortunately, for Conrad, he's been, it seems like he's been facing a lot more obstacles than AEW has with Double or Nothing. We haven't heard any major complications with AEW, whereas Conrad's had to deal with WWE pulling the Undertaker and Kurt Angle. Undertaker was kind of the big attraction for the event. Then getting Bret Hart and Tom McGee, their long lost match, and then WWE airing it before it can air exclusively at StarCast. So.
Well, to Conrad's credit here, on the call, he said that he thought that them showing the match, now everybody's showing up. They've all seen it, so you have your questions ready. Brett and Tom will be there. But yeah, certainly an interesting road. He should do a podcast about it,
He should.
That'd be an interesting one. Well, on to the second top story of the week. Coinciding with StarCast talk here, we had maybe the biggest news of the week. AEW officially announcing their deal with TNT. They are going to officially begin airing live weekly matches on TNT later this year in prime time. BR Live, the Bleacher Report Live app that WarnerMedia owns, will stream Double or Nothing. It's got about a $50 price tag. There will also be pay-per-view streaming, and the buy-in pre-show that will go on before the pay-per-view will air on all WarnerMedia and AEW social platforms. Huge news. Huge.
I mean, you're talking about it being one of the biggest stories of the week. It's one of the biggest stories of the year, or recent memory in many ways. The wrestling business, I mean, we have New Japan, ROH, Impact, and they're all doing well in their own ways. But we haven't had that strong number two company with a strong, television presence, and we're finally getting that for the first time since Impact was on Spike. They did, they were doing over 1 million viewers at one point a week. Before that, really WCW, especially a station as high profile as TNT. So yeah, AEW will be airing on TNT, start later this year is what they said. Apparently they have not decided which night it'll be. There's Tuesdays and Wednesdays is what they're looking at. Tuesdays, obviously you fill the void with SmackDown. I actually think Wednesday is a better night. I feel like so many people are tired after Raw on Monday that they don't feel like watching SmackDown the next day. That's why when you see Raw ratings down, SmackDown ratings are almost always down as well. I think it gives a little break between nights of wrestling as opposed to 3 hours of Raw. Not a lot happens a lot of times, and then sitting down for another 2 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, let's throw it out here. When WarnerMedia TNT announced this thing over on Twitter, they put up this GIF, the AEW logo with the Monday Nitro flame behind it. I'm looking at this, I'm going, this is very reminiscent of Monday nights on TNT. I mean, do you think that they could go big, go home, go head to head with the big dog?
I don't know if you want all the imagery of Nitro, because ultimately it did tank, and the last episode was Vince taking it over. So, I mean, granted, the glory days of wrestling, you think of those early Nitros and the Nitros in 96, 97, the NWO and Goldberg. But I just kind of feel like you almost want to be out of that shadow.
I don't know, man. Because here's the thing, in my opinion, right? Like, I feel like AEW knows wherever they go, WWE will probably try to counter program them in some way, right? Whether they go to Wednesdays, they put NXT on FS1 or whatever it may be. Why let WWE counter program you when you can get to that first? Why not do the land grab? I don't know. I think there would be some value to it.
We saw Impact try to do Monday nights and it didn't work out very well. They were back to Thursdays pretty quick. Yeah. I think when you've got this much money coming in, go the safer route. And you know what? Tony Khan just doesn't come across as much of a ruthless, cutthroat businessman as Eric Bischoff did. Eric Bischoff seemed like he would do stuff to hurt WWE more at times than to help WCW. Tony Khan seems more calculated. So I think he knows that, I just don't see him being as aggressive as Bischoff was, but I could be completely wrong.
Two things come to mind here. First would be, with the Impact Wrestling, honestly, right after this news broke, serendipitous, this news broke. And then within 24 hours, I got to interview Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle, right? Yeah. And, very rare you get somebody that's that close to WWE in this kind of position. So I actually got to ask Kurt Angle about it. We're going to air the audio next week on the WINCLY, but I know we're going to have some posts up with comments from Kurt. They may already be up by the time this makes it to air. And, Kurt talks about how he was there. He's like, we had Hulk Hogan. We had all the pieces, right? We went live head-to-head with him on Monday nights. We were touring, and it didn't work out. And, he noted that if you want to be number one, you want to compete with Vince, you're going to need hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think the differences here between what TNA did and what AEW could do is, with TNA, we were talking about, I wouldn't say smart money necessarily, right? You had Spike TV that was willing to put up a bunch of money. Sounds like they were paying for Hogan. I think they were paying for Eric as well. And they were like, make magic happen here, right? It was pretty much put together pretty quickly, if I'm not mistaken, about that period of TNA. We're talking about a totally different regime here, right? We're talking about a team that has taken, it'll be a year plus since they went from All In to being on TV on TNT. A lot of time to get your ducks in a row here. And, I go back to another interview I think I did last week with DDP, where he said that, when WCW did go live against Raw, you would think that's going to hurt Raw, right? It's going to split the ratings. That's not true. Both promotions saw a rise in the ratings because WWE's product already all of a sudden became more interesting. You got people flipping back and forth. So I don't know that it's a Eric Bischoff-esque, I'm going to give your results away on the air kind of deal. I think there could be a benefit here by going head-to-head with WWE.
Well, again, we are at 50-50. One worked with Nitro, and that was with a very established organization. WCW, had been big for years. Right. And they weren't far off in the ratings. WCW Saturday Night wasn't that far off in the ratings from Monday Night Raw. Right. Impact, was more of an up-and-comer, and, like I said, they weren't successful in that time slot. Although I felt like if they would have just stayed that 1 hour on Monday nights and filmed the second hour for Thursdays, because that first hour did pretty well, and then the rating would just drop once Raw came on. Mm-hmm. That would have been a strategy worth trying out, but they didn't. And, we are where we are. But, I mean, this isn't, it's exciting news. We'll have to see what kind of promotion they do. It's going to be interesting because if they're going to be airing in October, around when WWE moves to Fox, you're going to have Fox promoting SmackDown, national network promoting SmackDown. And then you're going to have TNT, probably TBS, promoting AEW. So you're going to be seeing wrestling promotion all over the place.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. And that's the thing is, are we on the verge of a boom here, or does it become oversaturated? We're so close to the day-to-day of it. I do feel this rise in interest right now. Like I said, ratings for WWE may be down. We'll get to that here in just a second. But our coverage, people are tuning in for what's going on right now. I just hope this doesn't lead to a kind of maybe burnout, by presenting too much wrestling all at once.
Right. Well, what happened in 95, it was kind of the same thing. The WWE versus WCW was way more interesting than the product they were presenting. And then eventually they both tweaked their product, and then that caught on. And then we had a huge boom. It doesn't look like we're headed to a boom yet, but we'll have to see. AEW right now is mostly unknowns to the mainstream public, except for maybe Jericho. There's not like a Hulk Hogan or a CM Punk, even, and CM Punk's a stretch as far as a mainstream personality, or sure. Brock Lesnar. But, if they can present themselves as this new exciting brand and bring back old fans that have, turned away because of the WWE product, we're onto something.
Yeah. And, they've got a lot of cards left to show here, right? I mean, I thought they built a lot of buzz. There's a deal. You don't know the night. You don't know the time. You got to stay tuned. So on that note, we're going to the third top story of the week. We talk all this AEW stuff to start the show. We got a story about WWE and Triple H. According to the Observer, Triple H is said to be very frustrated right now. He's the most frustrated person backstage in WWE. Now, there was this mysterious caller that called into the PW Torch with Wade Keller and spilled the beans for like an hour about some conversation he had with three writers for WWE. So a couple of the notes to encapsulate this, and you go over to WrestlingInc.com, you can find a very extensive recap of everything that was said on this call, but it boils down to there are about 40 writers on the staff right now. Vince is not pushing them all out. If anything, he's bringing them all in. Triple H feels the product is being watered down. It doesn't sound like Vince is going to step down, and it feels like he could become even more busy with the XFL launching here in the coming months. Stephanie no longer involved in creative. Shane pitching, but doesn't sound like he's listened to. Triple H pulling Vince to the side in private one-on-one conversations so that the writing team can't hear them. You can't hear mom and dad fight, it sounds like. So a pretty damning report here about, the creative struggle within WWE.
Yeah, I mean, it shows on screen. I mean, the wild card thing doesn't make sense from show to show, much less week to week. 1 week you got 6 people from the other brand appearing. You got the Usos, who just moved to Raw, facing Daniel Bryan and Rowan at Money in the Bank this Sunday, which it makes, again, no sense. It was supposed to be going from show to show, and now they're wrestling each other on pay-per-view. It's just, the brand split's kind of out the window. It's just such a mess. You see creatively, the storyline's just not sticking. You would have to remind yourself that you're going to see this classic AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins match this Sunday. They're not pushing that hard on TV. So I understand Triple H's frustrations. Vince McMahon, he's a genius. You don't get $500 million TV deal a year by lucking into it. Yes, the timing worked out, so you got a huge, way more than you would. But look at all these wrestling promotions that have been trying forever to get a decent TV deal and haven't been able to. So they're in a good spot business-wise, but they're creative. The popularity is sinking. At some point, we keep talking about this. At some point, you would think it's going to catch up until things change. If Vince is the genius that he says he is, and he sees the one area where they're falling is the popularity, he would step back and put people in charge that can probably help with that and try different things. You got 2 brands. You could try it on one, not on the other, so you're not risking too much. And try out and see what can work and get the numbers back up.
Well, it's interesting because last time around, like you brought up, Vince got put up, there's competition out there. He started to see a financial hit. People were, they've talked about infamously, Bret Hart, they couldn't afford $20 million for Bret. They couldn't afford this person. They were strung very tightly. That's not going to be the same groundwork here for round 2 of what could be this showdown here. Vince, very little to worry about, I think, in the financial department right now. And, I think back to, we brought up 95. I think about the Goon. I think about Duke the Dumpster Drosy,
Salvatore Sincere.
Oh, great. Pepe Le Pew. Yeah, exactly. The Pepe Le Pew of pro wrestling, right? Vince was very kind of blasé. He was like, we'll create these cartoon characters. They're all kind of interchangeable. The product was nowhere near the creative peaks that they would hit only a couple years later. And that was because Vince stepped out of the way. It's very parallel right now. We don't have maybe the same cartoonish type characters, but we have the same kind of attitude about interchangeability between the performers. And so I do wonder here if Vince, seeing all the wolves gathering around here, realizing, his lunch could be eaten here if he doesn't make a move, does do what I think a lot of fans and people backstage are want him to do and give Triple H the reins.
Yeah, I hope so. I just think the product needs a complete overhaul. I love what AEW is saying as far as not relying on scripted promos. So much of what has made the boom periods has been these characters and, Steve Austin and The Rock and their promos and that really connecting with the audience and drawing them in, not the matches. People don't go back and they're like, oh, I became a big fan of The Rock because of his, work rate. It was the characters. And I think it's hard to do that in this environment, get those over the top characters, those larger than life characters. So step back, give the artist more freedom, more reign, more control of their characters. Let them, perform and do what you do best. And that's run the business end.
Yeah, I agree. And, let's talk about getting some big characters over here, literally big characters. Our 4th big story of the week, the roller coaster that was Lars Sullivan dealing with the fallout from the controversial comments that surfaced online. First of all, Lars issued to us a statement late last week that said, there's no excuse for my inappropriate remarks that I made years ago. They do not reflect my personal beliefs nor who I am today. And I apologize to anyone I was offended. WWE followed up that by announcing they'd fined Lars $100,000. He'll be going to sensitivity training and will be on the offense, or he will be sensitive training for the offensive comments uncovered from the past. They will also facilitate meetings with him for community organizations to further foster discussion around the power of social media and the impact of your words. Lastly, here to kind of put a button on Lars Sullivan's walk back to redemption here, Titus O'Neil sharing a tweet revealing Lars approached him and apologized for his past comments here, basically saying that, Lars here understood that he needed to be a better human being and was not, the comments from 9 years ago did not reflect who he was. So it was a sincere apology on Titus's behalf, and he apologized to several other members of the roster. Honestly, this took a week. I think we talked about this as it was breaking last week on the show. This is kind of the end of it. From others that have been in a situation, I don't think I've seen anyone handle it better than Lars did here.
It's a rough situation for him. That's a lot of money. And I know a lot of people just think, these guys are in WWE, they're making a ton of money. They until you reach the top levels, you're not. And Lars, in NXT, the average salary is $80,000.
Yeah.
So think about that. So that installment plan, who knows how long that's going to run, but that's buying a very nice car.
Yeah.
And that money is going to this fine over something you did 7 years ago, or 10 years ago, or, it's overtime. The worst stuff was way back in the day. It was stupid what he did. But for the people I have talked to a few people over the past week, he is very sorry. It sounded to me like it was just trolling and trying to get a reaction and trying to be funny on the internet and on the message boards and trying to get a reaction. Stuff he said was still stupid. I'm not condoning what he said.
Right.
But, this issue is settled, this is a very harsh punishment.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing to kind of track. I would love to see his progress being tracked to the organizations, but at the same time, you're trying to get this guy over as a heel. So, can you show him at a Boys and Girls Club event?
Right.
I don't. So it'll be interesting here. Honestly, all I personally want as a human being, empathetic of my fellow human beings, is what Titus said here, right? That this guy was sincere, he was genuine, he apologized, and he's taking steps forward to spread the word about how his words affected people, and he's taking ownership of it. With that said, I don't know that you need to fine a guy $100,000 if he's genuine about it, right? Yeah. They did what they did. This, again, it was a little hard. Sure, maybe they want to send a message. Don't do this stuff. Great. But I was very impressed with the way Lars handled this in the past 7 days. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, and let's also, I mean, this was basically, if it was another talent, they probably would have been fired. We saw it was Zara Schreiber, but clearly they want to keep Lars. They see something big in him. So, this was the alternative. Lars could have quit. He didn't have to take it. And wrestled on the indies and then come back later when it was all forgotten. He's taken the punishment like a man. And yeah, like I said, I think, they did get pressure from Mars. And when the sponsors kick in, that's when WWE really kicks in. I think they were hoping it would just go away. He issued the apology. I think they were hoping that would be that. And it wasn't. And
yeah. Well, there's an expectation now. With great power comes great responsibility. And when you have a platform like that, your expectations are higher. I've talked to Pat McAfee about that quite a bit as well. A guy who's very active in charity. And, you have to understand that responsibility. So good on Lars for taking the right steps. All right, last thing here. It is Friday, the Friday before Money in the Bank. We're going to do a real quick prediction segment here. So we're going to keep it short. We're going to run through the matches. We're going to let you know who we think could be coming out on top. We'll start here with the Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion Becky Lynch taking on Charlotte Flair, defending her title. Who do you think walks out with that belt?
I think Becky doesn't leave with the belt, but she probably beats Charlotte, loses to whoever cashes in. And my guess to cash in would be Mandy Rose.
I think they're going to stick behind Becky Lynch here. I think they keep the belt on her. Roman Reigns versus Elias. Who you got?
Roman on that one.
Roman. I'm going Elias here. You got to keep the feud strong, baby.
I think they're moving on to Orton after this.
Okay. Universal Champion Seth Rollins defending against AJ Styles.
Rollins.
Rollins. I go with Rollins too. All right, we match. WWE Champion Kofi Kingston. He's defending against Kevin Owens.
I think it's too soon to take it off Kofi. I could see them do a DQ or something, but Kofi leaves with the belt.
Yeah, they got some big documentary down in Ghana planned for Kofi Kingston. So
they got like 2 events next month. So yeah,
I go Coffee. I hear voices. Is that just in my head? Am I Randy?
Yeah, I heard a couple there too.
Okay, The Miz taking on Shane McMahon in a steel cage match.
The Miz.
I will go with. I'm going to go with Shane. I think again, him and Elias need to be kept strong. Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion Becky Lynch, Lacey Evans. What do you think here?
Becky in this one.
Becky as well. Women's ladder match here: Ember, Bayley, Dana, Alexa, Natalya, Naomi, Carmella, and Mandy. Who you got?
Well, Alexa's out. She suffered a concussion, and it's probably going to be Nikki Cross. I'm going to go Mandy.
Go Mandy. Yeah, I'm gonna go with I'll go with Mandy. Sure, great. Good choice. All right. Men's Money in the Bank. Drew, Finn, Ricochet, Baron, Andrade, Sammy, Ali, and Randy Orton.
It's a toss-up to me between Drew, Ricochet, and Andrade on third. I'm going to go with Drew with Ricochet in a close second.
I think Sami Zayn. I think Sammy here. They put him through the table on Raw, so of course he's going to be a big winner.
That's true. But he did get a win too.
Yeah, well, win then through the table, right? The win didn't end the show; the table did. U.S. champ Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio.
I could see them going with Mysterio, honestly.
Yeah, sure. I mean, unless Samoa Dominic, Samoa Joe gets Dominic into a situation, whatever. We'll see. But more from these two. Could go ahead. Tony Nese, Oriya Daivari. Tony's defending the Cruiserweight title.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony. And lastly, SmackDown Tag Champions on the kickoff show. Daniel Bryan from main eventing WrestleMania to the kickoff show of Money in the Bank Tag Champion. Him and Rowan defending against the Usos. So
I've heard it's a non-title match, which makes even less sense. But Daniel Bryan and Rowan, I don't know. If it's non-title, I could see them going with the Usos and then leading to a title match. But I'm going to go with Bryan and Rowan.
Yeah, too early to take it off them. I'll do that as well. All right, and with that, we're going to throw it right now to our interview from WrestleCon 2019. Our own Andy Malnoske chatting with Baby Doll.
New York City for WrestlingInc.com with the legendary Baby Doll. Of course, here at WrestleCon today, Baby Doll, it's nice to meet you, and this is quite an event here today. Look at all the fans.
This is awesome, and for me, I mean, I know the fans get all excited, but for me, this is so cool because whenever they see me, it's 1985 all over again. They remember sitting on the couch with their grandparents, like watching TV on 605 WTBS and yelling and screaming and just having the best time. So for me, it brings back a lot of memories for me, just like it does for them.
Yeah, it really does. You see a lot of nostalgia, some classics around here today, and it's my first WrestleCon too, which is awesome. So it's the first one.
I've done one before, but yes, this is amazing. There's a lot of fan fest and autograph shows and everything, but WrestleCon's the premiere.
Yeah, it really is. And just a couple quick questions about your career. Of course, in the Mid-Atlantic days, you know, really a heat generator, heat magnet, so to speak, with Tully, Blanchard, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, what do you got to say about that?
It was scary, especially when I turned on Dusty and I put Flair's foot on the rope and a sold-out Charlotte Coliseum went completely silent. I thought, they're going to kill me. They are going to kill me. It's crazy now to look back because we didn't have security. Yeah. We didn't have guardrails. There was no one hardly ever walking us to and from the dressing room, so we literally had to fight our way to and from the dressing room almost every night.
My goodness. And obviously with the WWE now, with the women's revolution that they have going on now, what was it like being a female in the 80s in those locker rooms? And it must have been a different time.
Because now you go into the dressing room, there's like 10, 20 girls sometimes. And back then, I was like the only girl. I was the only girl traveling. I was the only girl in the dressing room. Totally different time. Just totally different time. And for me, it was like I was meant to be there. Because I just fell right in. I knew the guys. I knew how everything worked. And it was one of the stellar parts of my life. It was really cool.
Yeah,
I know where every broom closet and dark corner is in every building up and down the East Coast because I would try and go hide because I needed to have like an hour or two to get ready and I didn't want to see a bunch of all their stuff and all their going on, so I'd go hide.
I love it. So what's your take on this evolution now of the women's divisions? It really, I mean, WrestleMania 35, first female ever match main eventing the WrestleMania.
I think it's amazing, and I think that like with Charlotte in it, it's just a dynasty continuance. Plus, then my daughter's also wrestling also, so it's crazy how much the business has changed. It really has. It's not at all the same. Not at all the same. It really is. And it's not in a bad way, it's in a really good way.
Yeah, it's a positive. It's a positive.
Absolutely.
Baby Doll here at WrestleCon, New York City. And just two more quick things. Number one, looking back at your career, I mean, in the ring with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and so on and so forth. When you look back on that time, what stands out to you most about your career?
My career, the absolutely ridiculous amount of money I made, the friendships that I have now, the travel, I cannot believe. Honest to God, the first year that I worked with Tully, we had 15 days off out of the whole year. No weekends, no holidays. We were doing something every day except for 15 days.
Oh my goodness, that's not a lot of time off, to be honest with you.
I also had like 1 million frequent flyer miles with Eastern.
It built up over time, you know.
Exactly. I got a couple of TVs and everything. It was pretty cool.
Well, to quote a line from Tully Blanchard, he always used to say, he comes out to the ring with the perfect 10, the Baby Doll coming out. Perfect 10 right here in New York City.
That's it. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and he hardly ever got beat.
That's right. Baby Doll right here at WrestleCon, New York City. We're coming back at you at WrestlingInc.com.
Thank you so much for Raj for joining me for the news at the top of the show. Thank you very much for Andy to going out to WrestleCon, chatting there with Baby Doll. I have to say it like that. I can't not say it like that. If you want to join us, come to StarCast 2. We've got our own Wrestling Inc. Hootenanny going on Friday, May 24th, 2:30, going on just before the All in Wayne and press conference over at the Tuscany Suites Casino podcast movement stage. Come hang out with us. Voices from the site, prizes, games, great discussion, live microphone for you to ask your questions, to get involved with us. Also, you can head over to ProWrestlingTees.com/Wrestling Inc. Get a shirt, support the site, the old school logo or a Jack Journalist one. You can also head over to iTunes. Yeah, there you go. Raj has got one of those. You can buy that over there, guys. Go get one. Right. You can also go to iTunes, Wrestling Inc. Audio. Leave a nice note, 5-star ratings, all that great stuff. And be sure to support Ringside Wrestling at Ringside App on Twitter, at Ringside Wrestling App over on Instagram. Raj, what do you want to plug, promote, put over here before we wrap it up?
We got the interviews with Kurt Angle, DDP. I mean, just a host of people you got this week, Nick. And so check those out next week. It's going to be even more. And I'm going to be on Ryback's podcast on Monday. Just recorded it. It is a ton of stuff about almost anything you ever wanted to know about how much your pay hurts if you lose your push, and how much Ryback reveals how much he made at that WrestleMania where he faced Mark Henry, and then the next one when he teamed with Curtis Axel, and the difference in pay. And it was just insane. So creative decisions, how much that affects your pocketbook, just a ton of stuff.
Yeah, everything's popping and dropping, guys. You got to tune in. You got to stay engaged with Wrestling Inc. Come find us every day, 24/7. I'm Nick Hausman at Wink Rebel over on Twitter. Thanks for joining us here this Friday. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.